Welcome back to Oddtide Productions. I'm Mike, and this is a story of restoring a true classic in powerboat history. She's a 1966 Pearson 27 powerboat. She's hull number 81, built by Pearson Yachts out of Bristol, Rhode Island. This boat represents the golden era of American craftsmanship and innovation in powerboats. In this series, we're going to do a diesel repower from the old gasser that was in the boat. We're really trying to preserve the history and the heritage of this old Down East classic. So if you like classic boats, boat restorations, going on cool adventures, we kind of like to do it all. We put the boat together, we do the restoration, we go blow our hair back and have some fun. So check it out, subscribe, like, see you out there. So this is how it started. Another day scrolling Craigslist. I see what looked like a pretty cool looking boat, but maybe not. It's kind of more or less homeless by Southern California standards. If it doesn't have a slip and it doesn't have a trailer, it's homeless. The boat was cheap, had kind of cool classic lines. The more research I did on it, the more I realized it was the original version of the True North. 1966 Pearson 27. So, thought we'd take a look. The way that I look at these kinds of boats is kind of the same way that people look at classic cars. You're really just trying to check to see if the thing's got good bones. All the cosmetic and mechanical stuff is just piles and piles of crap that people have tried to repair over years and years instead of just pulling it apart, starting over and doing it right from the get-go. If I was a betting man, I'd say this was the second engine that had been in the boat, just based off the way the stringers were cut. She was a 351 Ford Windsor, freshwater cooled, straight shaft with a Borg Warner transmission. She would run just fine, she'd get up and go. The thing just really didn't like to idle. So we'd be out there cruising the harbor, doing what we do, hanging out. Next thing you know, we'd see the harbor patrol. So we'd slow her down and the thing would just peter out. Next thing you know, we're hanging out with the harbor patrol anyway. At this point, we were fully committed to doing the repower. Going back to gas just didn't really feel like an option. Just based on the longevity, reliability, the maintenance issues with them, and just having gas on the boat in general. After my experience working on the newer boats and the Volvo product, it was a really easy choice to just go in that direction. After fluffing around for a couple days in the shipyard, we really started to get our mind around the scope of what we wanted to do. Aside from the repower, we figured we were going to go ahead and do a full refurbishment. We started with just getting the steering replaced, the rudder post was all rotted out, did a bottom job on it, and at that point it was time to go ahead and get the boat over to our own facility. I finished stripping down the boat, down to her bare hull, removing all the systems and wiring, including the 2 100-gallon molar tanks that had been retrofitted during the secondary repower. These tanks were mounted midship and outboard in cradles molded to the bottom of the tank. The previous owner had used the boat for cruising the Channel Islands out of Ventura, and when we switched to diesel, it seemed logical to utilize the existing tanks. They were clean and already plumbed with return lines, and the additional range would be beneficial. Or so we thought. Little did we know, these tanks, one of the few components we didn't replace, would eventually come back to haunt us. The first order of business was tackling the forward engine room bulkhead repair. Along with adjusting the stringers to get the correct shaft angle dialed in, we wanted the engine mounts to sit upright and flat for a clean, vibration-free installation. I've got to say, I was pretty impressed with the old growth white oak stringers. They were 100% intact, no rot at all. Once the repairs were done with the stringers, we got them all glassed up. We ended up capping them off with 1/2-inch aluminum angle with a flat plate on the the last step was glassing at the keel, or as I like to call the oil catch. This was just something I really wanted to do to make sure that any raw water that fell into the bilge, any engine fluids that fell into the bilge, I was going to be able to spot them without having to guess if that was, 3-month-old oil or, 3-hour-old oil. The last thing I ended up having to do before getting into paint was to add 2 shelves, outboard and forward of the tanks. Previously, somehow or another, the guy had glassed battery boxes onto the bulkhead. Cool idea, I guess, but there's no way I was going to glass 4 batteries up on the bulkhead. So either way, I wanted somewhere that I could put fasteners down into a shelf and just have a really good mounting surface for batteries, autopilot pumps, water pumps, you name it, just whatever needs to be there. That's what we had to do. So just after that, we were able to get into paint, get everything tidied up and white, and seems like at that point the project really starts to take off. So that was the first peek into the Eventide story. In the next video, we're going to be installing the Volvo Penta D3 220 with a ZF transmission in it. Get a lot of the systems going, and then crazy twist pops up and my boss asked me to move across the country. So stay tuned. We're going to get this boat together.